Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we will chant 3 verses, number 1, number 5, and then number 20. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tadrishyam Driktu Manasam Drishyahadhi Vrittaya Sakshi Drigeva Natu Drishyate Nodeti na astameti esha na vriddhim yati nakshayam swayam vibhatyatha anyani bhasayet sadhanam vina. Number 20. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama chetyam shapanchakam adyatrayam brahma rupam Jagat Rupam Tato Dvayam. One more time. Asti Bhati Priyam Rupam Nama Chetyam Shapanchakam Adyatrayam Brahma Rupam Jagat Rupam Tato Dvayam. So, as we had mentioned, this is an important verse. Perhaps the most quoted verse from this text that you will find, and something that should form as the foundation of our study. So it says that if you look at anything in this world, anything, doesn't matter what it is, it consists of 5 aspects. And so I'm careful not to use the word parts, 5 parts, because it is really not parts. It isn't parts that we are talking about. We are talking about different aspects. They're not even qualities. For a reason that we should understand why they are not called qualities, that we will see that a little bit later on. But for now we say there are 5 ways of looking at anything in this world. And what are the 5 different ways to look at the world? It says Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Rupam, Nama, Ta iti cha iti ansha panchakam. Yeah, I'm very happy to see Swami Viditatmananda's translation, which I didn't know was not reading it ahead of time, also says 5 aspects. So, consistent with what I had said earlier. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama. These are the 5 aspects of anything in this world. So take an apple. So an apple means anything as a representative. That's the first thing that popped into my mind, because I had an apple for breakfast in this morning. And actually I didn't have the apple from my own garden today, but we do have 2 apple trees, and the fruits are relatively small. They're tasty, but for some reason I cannot get the apples to... I tried to give a lot of water this year, but I just did not get enough size of the apples, but they're tasty. So they're almost done, and I had one yesterday, which was nice to have your own apple, which you know that you didn't put any chemicals in it and so on. So apple, take an apple. Apple has one aspect that it is. And that it is known. Asti means is. Bhati means it is shining in your awareness as something which is, and it shines. So asti bhati. The priyam means that it is dear to you. Dear to you. I will come back to this word dear to you in much more detail today in this class. So that's our primary focus is going to be. Anyway, so dear to you. It is pleasing to you. So everything in the world has 5 aspects. Everything is known to you, and everything potentially is pleasing to you. This is what we are going to say, that not everything is pleasing. But let's say an apple. Apple is pleasing to most people. And it also has a shape. Shape means that also all the other aspects to it, like for example, the apple has a certain flavor to it, a certain color to it, something unique to it which distinguishes it from pears and bananas and other fruits. And it in fact has a name which is called apple. So the name actually comes about later in one's life, because even a child, if you, supposing there is a 1-year-old child, that you don't, even a 6-month-old child, you can give an apple and then it will immediately put it into the mouth. And doesn't know what the name is. So the name comes later on, when the mother and father have to remind them, this is called an apple. Apple. So we repeat it. So the name then becomes prevalent in their own mind. So anyway, these are the 5 things. Asti, bhati, priyam, nama, rupam and nama, to everything. So now, let us look into that. What does it really mean? So, first of all, in these 5 aspects, there is a segmentation of sorts. There are 2 classifications of these 5 aspects. One classification is Brahman. The other classification is called Jagat. One is called Brahman and the other one is called Jagat. So these 5 things can be, if you want, segmented. Again, I wouldn't say divided, because there's no way to divide them. There's no way to divide it. But they can be classified even. I think that's a better word than even a segmentation. They can be classified into 2 segments. One is called Brahman and the other one is called Jagat. So Brahman, of course, we have been studying all along, is the ultimate infinite reality, is called Brahman. Unchanging, infinite reality is called Brahman. So at first we didn't even know there was something like this, but then the Vedanta introduces, other religions also introduce, that there is something which is the overall reality of the world, which is unchanging. I'm not sure all the religions talk about this, but this Vedanta certainly does, that this is called Brahman. So this is one segmentation. The other segmentation is what is called Jagat. Jagat means this field of experiences, the world. The world is called Jagat. And by the way, just for your information, I think many of you already know this. All words in Vedanta, in Sanskrit, are derived from This sound became, maybe the battery is low. I don't know, it seemed to be okay. Anyway, it flashed before me that it was blank. So I've just restarted it, which is the audio recording. So all words in Vedanta, all words in Sanskrit actually, so this is not just in Vedanta, but the very basic language used in Vedanta, Sanskrit. Sanskrit is not a humanly made language, it is made by Ishvara. We were just talking about this yesterday to my son and daughter-in-law, that Sanskrit language and the formation of the human face and constituents of the face are all done together. So the alphabet and where it originates from and what the function of it is was all done together. It's not as though the face came first and the language came second, or the language came first and the human anatomy came second. No. So the palatal, the labial, the dental, the throat, all of that was designed for the Sanskrit language. Ka, kha, ga, pa, pa, bha, cha, cha, ja. Then the nasality, ma, nya, all of those are all done together. And so each word has an etymology and a meaning, and it is very precise. So you look at the word Brahman and the word Jagat. Just look at these two words. That's what I was going to do. The word Brahman is derived from the dhatu Brihat. Brihat means noun large. It's a noun. Brahman is a noun. It's not a quality. It's not an adjective. It is a noun, and the noun means large. This is an interesting thing to see. If you have large as a quality, you see, look at the distinction between a noun and a quality. A quality is dependent and a noun is independent. So, for example, take the word rose. Rose is a noun. Red rose, the red is a quality and the rose is the noun. Right? So now go back to the word Brihat. So Brihat means, is it a noun or is it a quality? Is it an adjective or is it a noun? To keep it pure in the language of the text. So if you use the word large as a quality, then it depends upon what are you talking about. Like, for example, you can say, I saw a very large rat. So there the word large is qualifying the word rat. And the rats, mice, you have only maybe about 4 or 5 inches, and the rats are about 6 inches or so. And this time you saw a rat which was 9 inches long. And so the word large depends on the rat. Or you can say, I just bought a very small car. One of those mini, BMW Mini. And compared to the big SUVs, this is a small car. But the small car is bigger than a big rat. So here the word large is totally dependent upon the vastu, the very noun. So the word brihat means large. The question is, large what? And large here means noun, not a quality. Like, for example, you can say this, when you can say, we have a large home, means that we have 5,000 square feet. Or you can say, I have a small house, small flat, which is 800 square feet. But so you can say the space is large, the space is small, there the usage is that of a quality. But if you say, how big is the space? It is not a quality, it is the noun, it is infinite. So brihat means infinite as a noun. This is called Brahman. So the word Brahman comes from the one who is infinite. Means, at least in the case of the space, it may be infinite in spatial terms, but it is not infinite in terms of time, because in deep sleep, space disappears. There's no such thing as a space. You cannot say, in deep sleep I saw space. You can say that in waking state, you can say that in dream state, but you cannot say that in deep sleep state. It disappears. And space only is to a person. I'm talking about from a standpoint of a single person. You cannot say space before I was born. You don't know that. So the space also is limited from a time standpoint, but spatially it is infinite. Brahman, on the other hand, is not only infinite spatially, time-wise, even from the standpoint of anything else, nothing limits it. Like, for example, space spatially cannot be limited. You cannot say, I have limited space. If you say, I have limited space, you're not changing space, you're only changing the usage of space for your own goodness. Like it happens often that you and your companion are both traveling and your companion has more stuff than you do, so that that person can say, can you take some of, because I don't have enough space in my carry-on, can you take some of my things? So the limitedness of space can only be done from a transactional viewpoint, but the reality of it is you cannot say my space never shrinks. And similarly, Brahman is not something which is limited in any way. Anyway, I'm just giving you the definition of the word Brahman. So the Brahman here, even linguistically, means the noun large. And large means so large that it is infinite. Nothing is as large as Brahman. Unlimited. This is the meaning of the word Brahman, is unlimited. So now, anything in the world is classified into two segments. One is called Brahman and the other one is called Jagat. So let's define Jagat. That's what the verse is saying. I'm just reflecting what the verse is saying. Asti bhati priyam rupam namacha iti amsha panchakam adyatrayam. Adyatrayam means the first three. Adya means in the beginning. Trayam means threefold. So the first three. What are the first three? Asti bhati priyam are Brahma Rupam. They are classified under the segment Brahman. Done? We are finished with that. Let's go to Jagat. First of all, let's define Jagat. Jagat is, as I mentioned before, the entire spectrum of all your experiences. In fact, your own life itself, as you see it, as you experience it, is called Jagat. Jagat also can be explained etymologically. Etymology means from, this is in Sanskrit called Vyutpatti Artha. Vyutpatti Artha means that it has to be divided into how did it get derived? So in Sanskrit we have two expressions. One is called Rudhi Artha and one is called Vyutpatti Artha. Rudhi Artha means that it is just accepted as convention. So sometimes that happens. Like for example, the word Rama means as soon as you see the word Rama, utter the word Rama, hear the word Rama, you think of the god Rama from Ramayana, the husband of Sita. But from a Vyutpatti Artha means Ramante Asminiti Rama. So it means the one that you all dwell in, one who's you Priyam Rupam, in that case would be Rama. So anyway, I'm going into too much detail there, but let's go back into the definition of the word Jagat. Jagat is derived as Jayate Gacchati iti Jagat. So Jayate, the first syllable of Jayate is Ja. And Ja means one that is born. One which means one which is born, which is comes about. And the second one is Ga, which is Gacchati, which means it goes. In fact, if you analyze, your entire set of experiences in life consists of a continuous change of coming up and going, experiencing, going. And it looks solid. And it is exactly like in the modern terms, if the film industry was prevalent in those days, in the days of the explanation of Vedanta, they would give this example. So the old style film, I'm not talking about the digital film, That has a different aspect to it. But if you look at the old style reel, then what happens is that the projection of the reel onto a screen is very dynamic. I remember my memory goes back to in the I think late 40s, when I was about 9 or 10. I used to live with my grandparents, maternal grandparents in Amritsar, and my maternal uncle was a young man in the house and I was a youngster. And my parents were far away because there were no good schools there where my parents were in Bihar in the coal mine. So I ended up staying with my maternal grandparents. Anyway, so my uncle one day brought home a projector. And this is a rickety old projector that he borrowed from a friend. And I can never forget the magical moments of really seeing the projector. We plugged it in, it was an electrical projector. We loaded the film and we saw the projection on the wall. There was no screen, we just had a light colored wall and we just projected it. And my uncle was winding up the thing and then pushing the button and so on. And lo and behold, this movie came on the wall. And we had so much fun with it. We actually did it reverse. And the reverse was even better than the forward. Why? Because there was a picture of saucer breaking. Somebody was just mishandling the saucer, which was a China saucer, and it broke into pieces. When you put it on reverse, you saw all the broken pieces all come back into a saucer. Oh my God, I have no better fun in my life than to see this over and over again. And we examined each picture separately, how it was done. And what we found was, even at that age I could tell, that each picture was slightly different, jerky. But if you do it very quickly, it looks solid. Do you know our life is exactly like that? Exactly like that. What you're seeing is a marvelous three-dimensional, multi-dimensional picture projected by Ishvara in front of you. Everything is changing. Your body is changing. Cells are changing. Situations are changing. Sounds are changing. Place is changing. Time is moving. It is just a continuous change. A continuous change means what? It comes up and it goes. The moment it comes up, the moment it goes. And a new one comes up. And if you could just see it being constructed, you'll see a series of jerky motions. But because they're happening so fast, it doesn't look jerky. It looks very solid. This is called Jagat. This is called Jagat. So now let's go back to our original example of an apple. This is where we all started with. Swami Dayanand always taught us, this is one of the things Swami Dayanand not only taught us Vedanta, but he also taught us the skills of teaching, of talking. And one of the things he always taught us was that if you take a branch and go away into the details of a concept. You're providing some concepts step by step. Then in the middle of one concept you pause and you take a detour and you now go into some details about it. You better remember what the original concept was from which you started the detour. He says if you don't do that, you make the listeners very uncomfortable. Because the listeners may have an idea of where you started from, but you have forgotten it. The listener becomes really uncomfortable. That is this the speaker I'm talking to? Who cannot even go back to where there's no end, no beginning? Swamiji says, whenever you take a detailed detour, make a point in your mind that I have to come back to this. Now I may have violated it, but very infrequently, because this is one of the skills we learned as part of communication. I'm really indebted to Swamiji for doing that. He's a very rare person. Not only is he well versed in the fundamentals of the Shastra, but the way to communicate, he really taught us all of that. So apple, this is what we started with. So the apple can be categorized in two segments. One is the segment of Brahman. The other one is the segment of Jagat. Okay? The Brahman segment is Asti Bhati Priyam. So the apple will never have, will always be Asti Bhati Priyam. The other segment is Nama Rupam. Rupam Nama. The Rupam Nama is in the segment of Jagat. And Asti Bhati Priyam is in the segment of Brahman. Right? This is what we started with, and we're going back to it. Let us first see how the apple is in the segment of the Jagat. That's easy to see. Because just like the rest of your experiences, what you find is that the apple is changing continuously. And you may not see it, but if you stare at it long enough, if you and I had the patience and we actually snapped, supposing these video cameras these days are available that run through the night, and they are security oriented. So if somebody tried to open your front door, they will have a picture of it the next day so you can see who came in. So the cameras are there for 12 hours, 24 hours. So supposing you are like that camera and you're just watching this apple for a few days, some of the other fruits are a lot faster to deteriorate, like a banana. Banana ripens quickly and it deteriorates very quickly. Apples are less, but it is still deteriorating. You'll see spots develop and you will see softness develop. Pretty soon it decays. So this is what is called Jagat. And everything about the apple will change. Shape will change, the look will change, the flavor will change, the pulpness of it will change. It's changing. In fact, when if you wanted to really see the full cycle, you have to see how it first came up as a small bud in the tree, and it became a flower, and from the flower it became, so we want to look at the entire life cycle of an apple. Jagat, 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 Jagat. Okay. All right. So done with the that segmentation. Now let us look at the segmentation of Brahman. The apple as Brahman. So what happens is that in the segmentation of Brahman, there are three things that always are. One is that it is. It is present, because the absence of an apple means that you say, where's the apple? No, I don't have any apple. We don't have any apples today. That happens to people. You say, do we have any bananas today? No, we don't have any bananas. So there's an absence of banana. By the way, the absence of something also we will consider. The absence we will also consider. Okay, now in fact let's consider it right now. Very beautiful segment which was analyzed by Swami Maheshananji in the commentary on Panchadashi. I think 14th chapter of Panchadashi. Maybe 13th or 14th. Swami Vidyaranya actually has said it, but Swami Maheshananji explained it very well in Panchadashi. My absolute favorite text. I just have, out of all the texts, after you have studied the Upanishads, the best way to summarize, to see the analysis of that is Panchadashi. I am just in awe of it. And especially with commentaries by Swami Maheshananji. No one else has given that commentary before. But he has revealed aspects of it that are just amazing. So in one of those discussions, there was the question of isness. Apple is. Apple is. So in the discussion of the isness of the apple and also the knowledge of the apple. So when you see something, then you see that it looks like an apple. So the apple is sure. Now look at the absence of the apple. So Swami Vidyaranya says that the absence of apple to recognize in the various pramanas, for those of you that are following the 6 pramanas, one of the pramanas means, pramana means a absolute reliable way to identify something. Proof. So the English translation of pramana is proof. One of the proofs is anupalabdhi. Anupalabdhi means the knowledge of the absence of something. Like suppose the apple is not there and somebody says to you, supposing your spouse, my wife sometimes does this. I get a call on the phone and I'm doing something and she says, oh, by the way, can you look on the kitchen table? She says, I am shopping, I'm at the grocery store and I wasn't sure how many bananas we have. Can you look on the kitchen table? We have an island in our kitchen. Look in the basket. We put all the fruits in a basket. Look into the basket and tell me how many, if you have any bananas. And I go there and I go back and I says, nope, we don't have any bananas. She says, good, then I'll buy some. Because she forgot how many bananas we were before she went shopping. So now I say there are no bananas. When I say there are no bananas, Swami Vidyaranya says, you are actually more awareful than if there was a banana. Why? Because to know a banana and to see its absence requires more understanding. Why? Because on the phone I have to know what a banana is, the word banana. Then I translate that in my mind. This is what it looks like. Then I go there and say, is it here? No, it is not here. So now, not only do I, if I see a banana very quickly, then it doesn't require that much thinking. But in this case, I have to see the banana which has been visualized in my mind. It is not there. In fact, you know what? This is going into more detail, but very simply speaking, you both know a language and you also know a language that you don't know. So this is a very important thing to see, because this is all connected with the Asti Bhati Priyam, and I'll hopefully will make some connection a little bit clearer later on, but I just wanted to stay on this topic of knowing something and not knowing something. So it is like the absence as well as the presence. This is an important thing to see. Why? Because just consider this. Look at the depth of the understanding, the depth of the analysis. This is the analysis. Normally our problem is that we just take for things without understanding the constituents of it. This is our issue. We just accept it. Like for example, if I ask in the class, do you know English? And people will say, yes, I know English. And then I will say, do you know Telugu? There might be some people who know Telugu, others will say, I don't know Telugu. So I ask yourself, how do you know you don't know Telugu? So you'll say, what do you mean? What kind of a question is that? I know I don't know Telugu. I know English and I don't know Telugu. So this is what Swami Vidyaranya's question is. To know that you don't know Telugu, you have to have certain awareness. So you know what that means? What it means is that your awareness, the sakshitvam, is the same sakshi that we've been studying all the way, is superior. So this is encapsulated by the word param, the word paraha. Paraha and param, they are both different. One is neuter, the other one is masculine gender. So paraha and param, parabrahma, paramatma. So this word param is something that needs to be understood. There was a time when I had to study this, and then I finally grasped this point. Param means one which is at a higher level. Is more param. What do you mean by a higher level? What do you mean by a level? This is clear from the understanding of I do not know Telugu. How? Because the knowledge of English is known to the Sakshi. Sakshi is at a higher level than the knowledge of English. The absence of knowledge of Telugu is known to the same Sakshi. The Sakshi is at a higher level than the knowledge or the absence of the knowledge of Telugu. You see this point? Very important point to see. So the Sakshi, the Atma, is at a higher level in various ways. One of the ways is that you're always aware. You're always aware. What you are aware of comes and goes. So there, the knowledge of English is also anatma. It's also part of Jagat. The knowledge of English is also part of Jagat. I'll give you an example. So, how I've been forgetting languages. So my father was born in the area in India which is adjoining New Delhi, very close to New Delhi. That whole area, Agra, New Delhi. At that time there was not a province called UP, United Province. It was just an area. And so he was a Hindi speaking. His father, my grandfather, was Urdu speaking in those days of Muslim rule. But my father was Hindi speaking. My mother was Punjabi, from Punjab. And so actually I learned Punjabi when I was living with my grandparents. And I used to speak very, very good Punjabi. And my father was really amused at it because he didn't know Punjabi. But I knew Punjabi because at the very beginning I learnt it. And I learnt the language Gurmukhi. But you know what? My speaking Punjabi is maybe so-so. My Gurmukhi is completely gone. So my knowledge of a language is part of Anatma because it keeps changing. It is part of Jagat. My Sakshitvam is not part of Jagat. Because, how can you say that? It is constant. At one time I knew Punjabi. Now my Punjabi is not as strong. My knowledge of Gurmukhi, which is the text for Punjabi, is almost completely gone. And I am still aware of it. I used to know Gurmukhi. Now I have forgotten Gurmukhi. And so it is at a higher level than the rest of it. And so just see this fact very clearly. Going back to the apple. So apple is, or perhaps the absence of apple. Because the apple's nama rupa is changing. You may not have the apple, or you may have it. Doesn't matter. That's part of the Jagat. But, and also it is, when it is there, it is asti. When it is not there, how can it be asti? But there, your knowledge that there was an apple, now it is not there, or there never was an apple here, is still the same. So therefore, the Brahman, the Asti Bhati. So here, now let's move on to a discussion of 1049. We may not have enough time to look at Priyam in all of its glory. That is where the real thing is. So I'll start on it, but I may not be able to finish it today. Okay, so now there are three aspects, Asti, Bhati, Priyam. That's what we are now examining. If we look at an apple, the fact that it is there is obvious. Not very difficult to see that. Yeah? Not difficult to see that at all. It is asti. That it shines in my awareness is also obvious. Now comes the third one, which is priyam. Priyam means one which is dear to me. This one I have some doubts. Apple, I think, is dear to most people, and so it is generally dear, but not to others. So there are things in my life that are, because remember I made the statement that everything in this life is made out of these 5 things. Everything, not just the apple. Everything is made up of these 5 things. So there one can ask, asti or bhati I can see as being common to everything, but priyam I don't see because some things are not dear to me. This is where our next examination is going to be. And so what we will see is the fact that it is not dear to me is not that it is a quality of the substance, but it means that it is not dear to my mind. The quality is that it is dear to someone. Nothing in this whole creation is a mistake. It's something to grasp. Nothing. Nothing is a mistake. It is all pleasing to someone or the other. You can say, if there is a terrorist, who is he pleasing to? Who is he pleasing to? You can say that the terrorist is pleasing to his own family, to his spouse, to his, if nothing else, to his mother. This brings up an interesting point. Swami Viditatmananda also discusses that in his book. I hope you can get the some of the commentary of more in-depth commentary by Swami Viditatmananda in the book, and I'm hoping that you are following the details in the book itself. So you look at the pleasingness of a terrorist to his mother, let's say. So you can say, here's this guy who has taken a AK-47 and he's killed a lot of people. How can he be pleasing to anyone? It's ridiculous. Not priyam. Well, what it means is, it is not pleasing to you because you might have been a victim of his terrorism. We grant that. But it is pleasing to his mother. We go and talk to the mother. You know what the mother will normally say? That's not my son. That's not my... Something came over him. This is what she would say. You'd say, most of them. They'll say, I don't understand. This is not my son that I reared. He's a very loving person. He takes care of his children and his wife and so on, and takes care of me. He's a very kind person. So something came over him. I don't understand what took over him. You know what that means is that something other than my son entered him, which is really the truth. This is the truth about the life is, as we were studying in the earlier class, that the Atma is ever pure, untainted, full of joy and happiness. But some kind of a cover obstructs my pleasingness to myself. So really speaking, in summary, I would say that there is still the truth in the statement that everything in the world is asti bhati priyam, is pleasing. Why? Because in Ishvara's creation, nothing is a mistake. Nothing is outside this definition, asti bhati priyam. You know, sometimes I remember going to, when I was growing up, to shops in India. Even now you can even go to the US also. You go to some of these shops and you see really clothes and objects that are strange colors, garish. And you say, who are they meant for? This is a very strange looking thing. How can it really be pleasing to anyone? But you know what? The shopkeepers are not stupid. They will never keep anything which is not pleasing to someone. It may not be pleasing to you, but there's other people who may love that garish color. And they know what sells. So you cannot really negate the veracity, the truth of this statement, asti bhati priyam. So priyam also is a composition of everything in this world. And so here Swami Viditatmananda says that if you are not happy with some things, you have to change your mind about it, because potentially everything in the world is okay. It is pleasing to you. And it is just your own viewpoint that keeps you from understanding the fact that it is priyam. So this is with respect to all the things in life. Now, having said that, what we will study briefly in the next class, and quite frankly, I think we are coming to the final stages of the main instruction in the Drg Drsya Viveka, and pretty soon we will go into the section on meditation, which is a very beautiful section. In particular and in general, go into how can I understand the truth which is being presented, but one that is not clear to me yet. So this is what would be called Mananam and Nididhyasanam. But the Shravanam part of Vedanta, in terms of what is the fundamentals of knowledge, are now coming to an end. We almost completed it. But we have a few more things to clarify, and so I will complete verse number 20 next time in a very short amount of time, and then transition into the sadhana, the method of understanding, culminating in a very beautiful discussion on meditation that we will start in the next few classes. So with that, let me wrap up. So this is the whole section on the nature of Brahman, as Swami Viditatmananda has pointed out about this important verse. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama chaitiyant pancha panchakam adyatrayam brahma rupam jagat rupam tatodvayam. An important verse. So with that, let's close the class. Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Good. Happy that you're here. I think this is a good, as I mentioned that before, I'm just repeating that. This is a good foundational book. And if you haven't had a chance to really attend all the classes or to read the book, underlying book, then you could do that sometime in the future, even revise it. Because I think Swami Viditatmananda has captured the details of each one of these concepts in these verses very well. And so this could become a foundation, a little bit more advanced than Tattva Bodha in the understanding of Vedanta. And I highly recommend that you study this again sometime. But we are not done yet. We still have some ways to go. But all I'm saying is that I'm really happy that we chose this text, because I find this to be a fairly good, broad introduction into the fundamentals of Vedanta that you can build on. And then we will go into more details on it and more in times to come. But this is a good foundation text, and I hope you agree with it. And that's certainly my thinking. And I wish you clarity of analysis and thinking as we go forward. So again, if you had any questions about it, something you don't quite understand or so on, please do let me know, and I look forward to going over that. So I will see you next week. Okay? Om.